And we're back with another episode of the Return of the Roar podcast, sitting side by side for anybody watching on YouTube, live at headquarters.
We are not, in prison, or we are not in a dark situation here. Just no art behind us, just in a vacant office here at Sactown Sports 1140. Need some decoration, but good to be here next to you, man, in person.
We are the decoration.
We are the decoration.
We are. And the Kings got a little bit of decorations. That was an attempted segue.
It's not like Golden State where they drop streamers after every win.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Can we talk about that for a quick before we get into the?
I kind of forgot that happened.
I don't want to hear the Warriors fan base getting after the Kings about the beam and the picture and everything when y'all drop streamers after every game.
Yeah.
In every game, it was the second home game of the season for the Warriors, and they dropped streamers like it was the finals. So I don't want to hear anything about the beam. On that side again.
Right. I agree. It was kind of wild, but I guess it's whatever the team is used to. Like if you do it every game, then do it every game. Like I hope that's an every game thing. The fact that we saw it, even though I think that would be extra, but if it was just for the Kings, let's say, or division opponents or something, it's every game, right?
They did it in the playoffs too, which at that point,
that's right.
But that's when I think I noticed it the first time. I was like, okay, it's the playoffs, I get it. But I was thinking back to last year, the Kevin Huerter game, where they missed the foul call on Klay Thompson, and they dropped streamers that game too. So.
Yeah.
No redecoration last night, but a lot of beams. We had a lot of beams in last week.
A lot of beams. 3 straight wins for the Kings. Most recently, a 132-120 victory over the Cleveland Cavaliers. And we got that one to talk about. We got a win over the Oklahoma City Thunder in the in-season tournament game that we're going to get to. And maybe we'll just go in backwards order. Let's just start with what's happened most recently, if that works for you. 132-120 win again over the Cavaliers. De'Aaron Fox's return. They've been playing Kings basketball. Coach talks about how he wants them to be physical, fast, and together. And I feel like that's exactly what we've seen.
I think that's what we were waiting for, right? I mean, the Kings look so out of sorts without De'Aaron Fox. The offense wasn't really flowing. There was a lot of rushing sets down into the last couple of seconds of a shot clock. They just didn't look like themselves like last year. And it was almost like a seamless transition. De'Aaron comes back in. The offense looks great. Keegan Murray's knocking down shots. Kevin Huerter has been red hot. We're going to talk about him in a little bit. Domantas Sabonis, I think, is able to do more things and open the floor up more. And when De'Aaron Fox is available, it frees him up a little more too. It frees everybody up a little more when you have De'Aaron Fox on the court. So having him back, 36 minutes, 28 points, 6 assists, and it seemed like he wanted to come back sooner. And if it was a playoff situation or if it was a late season situation, we probably would have seen him before last night, but I think it was smart of the Kings to hold him out and kind of see what you have. And it was a rough 5-game stretch without him overall, 2-3. But last night, you got a reminder of just how good this offense is when everybody's playing well and when De'Aaron Fox is on the court, most importantly.
Fox just looked like himself, looked totally normal. And himself is one of the best point guards in the league. I think he's going to be in all NBA contention again this year. There's a chance we're talking first, second team instead of just maybe sneaking into third team like he did last year.
The cutoff 65 games?
65 games.
Okay.
Yeah.
He missed 5. So on track. So listen, wiggle room.
Yeah. So he's at 75 max or 77 right now max. Yeah.
With wiggle
Quick
room.
Math. Yeah.
With wiggle room.
Yes. So still room there. And shots have been going down recently. Their offense has looked like itself, right? I think that was one of the big concerns. I don't even know if concern's the right word because shots were going to go down.
Well, I pulled out these splits from earlier today, and it's a small sample size. This is all that we have to kind of go off of here, but without De'Aaron Fox this season, the Kings averaged 102.6 points per game. Put De'Aaron Fox into the equation, 126.5 points per game. And that goes to field goal. 48% with De'Aaron Fox, 42 without, 37% from 3 with De'Aaron Fox, 30 without. So we talk about that frees up the court, frees up everybody else on this Kings team when De'Aaron Fox is on the floor. I think Chris Watkins actually is going to be making a stop by.
He may eventually.
Chris Watkins, a little preview, he's going to be stopped by. But just looking at those numbers, the offensive rating too, with De'Aaron Fox, 123.3. Offensive rating without De'Aaron Fox, 105.5. De'Aaron Fox frees up his teammates. And that kind of goes back to the struggles we saw from Kevin Huerter and Keegan Murray. The shots weren't falling. And a lot of these looks were good looks. but just having a guy like De'Aaron Fox of that caliber to take the attention of opposing defenses away, even for a second longer, that benefits players like Kevin Huerter and Keegan Murray, and they've been just absolutely on fire right now. We'll pull up numbers on them, but they've been absolutely on fire.
Yeah, two guys that were some of the best shooters in the league last year. You know it would happen eventually, but De'Aaron does just make life so much easier for them. It's the paint touches that I think is the biggest thing that De'Aaron provides. Like we saw Domas be more aggressive in these most recent games. I think the three straight that Sacramento have won, I feel like Domas has been really aggressive. Really after that, was it 4 attempt game in the second Houston matchup where it was like, gosh, can you really be doing this without De'Aaron?
Those games are a wash. I mean, those games are honestly a wash.
They're wild. Well, and now you look at it and it's like, okay, Houston might be okay. You know, like, are they Utah of last year? Are they the Kings of last year? Like,
well, that's the thing. And I was talking to Jason Ross about it. It's, you look at the beginning of the season and was the schedule crazy hard? I wouldn't say no as far as strength of schedule. The Kings probably weren't high on that list, but we don't really know what Houston is yet. I mean, is Houston this team we're seeing? I mean, Jason's point was Portland last year, I think, started off really well. I think they were the number 1 seed. You're like
New Orleans also.
Yeah. And then they fall off. The bottom falls out. I think that we might see a little leveling out. I don't know if Houston's going to be. I mean, we don't know. Kings were a 3 seed in the West last year, but maybe they aren't a top 3, top 4 seed. But point is, they've been spanking everybody. So that kind of has to factor into the equation as well. As if the Kings are playing other teams, do they come out on top, look better than they would have without De'Aaron Fox? We'll never know. But with De'Aaron Fox, they're a very good basketball team.
They are, and still, I would guess, one of the best offenses in the league when they have him out there and everybody's rolling. You know, the shots going down obviously is a huge part of that. But defensively, do you feel like we've seen the progress that they've been asking for? I mean, really last year, it feels like it started almost in the postseason, but coming into this year, you know, we've talked about it how many times, like the word physicality. We've talked about how many times they say it. I feel like we've said it. Who knows how many times?
A word in my life. Which, by the way, Chris, you can slide over here and join us, my friend.
We do have Chris Watkins.
We made sure we had room on the camera.
So we're going to be passing this to you. Chris is going to sit on the couch that we decided
Chris Watkins
was not the best for all of us to be sitting on.
Chris Watkins.
Yeah, Chris just coming off of Chris Styles and Watkins, 10-2. Figured you haven't talked about this team very much today.
No, not really much at all.
So where do you feel like you've seen this team defensively, the Kings, make progress these last couple games? Like they're talking about how they want to be better on that end. Do you see a blueprint for being notably better than last year?
Yeah, as a team, I don't know if I've seen it yet, but definitely the most encouraging sign of that this team is working towards being just not a turnstile defensively, I would say, is the fact that they're really trying to make Keegan Murray into this isolation defender on the point of attack for the ball handlers. And I couldn't help but watch yesterday's game and just think, is this Mike Brown trying to kind of get a Klay Thompson out of this team? You know, we saw that's kind of how the Warriors were able to survive defensively in the playoffs for a long time in their run, was just kind of having Klay Thompson be the main focal point of the defensive attack. He would go on Kyrie Irving when they're playing the Cavs in the finals and stuff like that. And I don't think many people would have said that those Warrior teams were good defensively, but the fact that they had a guy in Klay Thompson that you could just essentially throw on a team's playmaker and say, just take him out for 48 minutes. I think that's a step in the right direction. Again, I don't know if the team in its entirety is necessarily, shown steps that they're moving in the right direction, but I think finding a guy that can disrupt the point of attack is definitely a good place to start, because if you have one great defender and then a bunch of guys who can buy into a team system, I think, again, and we've talked about it in the past, like it's just about being average for this team. It's not about them being the Detroit Pistons of the early 2000s.
Don't be bad.
Just don't be bad. Don't be actively bad. Just be good enough. And I think the offense, especially if it's shooting like it was last night, the sky's the limit, realistically.
And just to give credit to Keegan, I'm going to read this tweet. And there's a backhanded jab in it. It's from our friend Tim Maxwell. Sactown Baby Giraffe. I did not read the bottom part, but I'm going to read it. The shot and then the response to. But credit to Keegan Murray, who did a good job on Stephen Curry a couple weeks ago, and then obviously last night with Donovan Mitchell. Keegan Murray last night defended Donovan Mitchell for 59% of his offensive possessions. Donovan Mitchell, while being defended by Keegan Murray, 2 of 10 from the field.
Not bad.
0 fouls drawn, 5 points. So good job by Keegan. But the end, our buddy Tim, he says he turned Donovan into Davion. And the top response is, what did Davion do to deserve this?
Might have blocked him.
Might have blocked
I don't
him.
think that means he deserves it for what it's worth. But, by the way, the no fouls on Donovan was a little triggering for me as somebody that may or may not have participated in.
He didn't have any fouls.
Well, not no foul, but his lack of free throw attempts is what I mean.
What did he finish last night? Last night,
not many. Which was
not
enough.
Not enough.
He did not go over. Is all we're gonna say. He did not get over.
Not enough.
Yeah. So no, but I mean, I think Keegan's been great. Like Coach talked about, we want to be able to put him on Steph, which we saw, and it worked okay. Like I think this is all a process. I don't expect him to just be clamping people up right away, right? But you're seeing him embrace it. Like I thought yesterday was maybe the best defense we've seen from Keegan. Even actually like early in his rookie year last season, I think there was a game at home in that first 4 game losses where they put him on Paul George really early. Yeah. And it was like, okay.
Yeah, that was game 4,
here.
wasn't it?
It was something like that. It was a close one in those first 4.
He did really well too. I remember.
Yeah, so there's been a little bit of potential here and there. But I think we're seeing it more actualized. Coach talks about like, I want to be able to put him on Steph and Donovan Mitchell, but then also put him on LeBron. And it's like, okay. I mean, the Kings need a guy that can do that and still produce something offensively.
Somebody brought back up on my timeline the video of Luke Laux during the California Classic talking about that Keegan practice where they said this is the biggest leap we've seen from a guy since we saw Kawhi Leonard make a similar leap in San Antonio. Do you guys feel like you've seen at least parts of that? I think, even when that comment was made, I think everybody was like, whoa, hold on, take a second here. But do you see like kind of where maybe that scout was kind of getting at, or do you think that's still a little bit of a hyperbole? Do you feel like Keegan has really made a massive leap? Of course, I would say if you look at the percentages, definitely the percentages don't seem to say that, but the percentages might even say Keegan's in a sophomore slump. But eye test wise, we've seen Keegan's doing so much more and so much more different things than he was doing last year that there's a reason for why the slump has happened. Just in general, do you guys feel like Keegan has made as big of a jump as what I think we were all kind of promised and told?
Maybe not quite as big of a jump, like honestly, I think offensively, but I think it's like all the other things, right? Like Keegan mentioned the other day that last year, if shots weren't going down, he was getting pulled. And this year because he couldn't do anything. He couldn't impact the game in other ways. And this year he's rebounding the ball really well, right? 4.6 per game last year, 6.9 this year. Like offensively, the whole team has been rebounding great. Keegan was solid last night with 8 boards. 2 of those came offensive, and their second chance points, I think, have been really big for this team. I think his like passing has been better, starting from a low point, but just like connective stuff. Offensively, I think like the creation is kind of what we were all looking for, is that next jump. Right. And I don't think we've seen that. But I do think we've seen progress in a lot of little things, and getting a wing defender like that is just huge for this group, But it is kind of funny, like, to hear you say like the importance of like having a point of attack defender, right? Because it is important, but the Kings do kind of have a guy that is elite at point of attack, and he didn't play a single minute last night.
Well,
you know what I mean? I get the logic.
Where do we want to go with this? Do we just want to talk about last night? Do we want to talk about the big picture of it all?
Let's start with Keon, I guess, because I think this has more to do with rewarding Keon than, I don't like the word punishing, but I can't think of a different one. It has more to do with rewarding Keon than punishing Davion.
Well, I mean, Mike said it best. I don't think we can look at it as punishment. I think as an athlete, when you were, anyone that was coming up and played sports knows that if you are demoted or go to the bench, you view it as a punishment. You view it as, I did something bad, so this is what I get.
Yeah.
So in a way, by definition, sure. Like maybe that is what happens as far as the definition of being benched.
Right.
Because Davion Mitchell, as we can say, he's been benched. But Mike tries to put a Mike Brown spin on everything and say that, it's all about opportunity and how Keon has looked good in the minutes we've seen from him. And I do think, as far as where they are as NBA players, from an offensive standpoint, I think Keon might be a step ahead
Which
of
is
Davion.
wild because Keegan has a lot of work to do too.
Oh, for sure. But I was asking this question too, I think. It's just like, at what point is Davion Mitchell not a project anymore? Like, I just want to know maybe if I can ask you guys that question. Was he not, when does a player graduate from being a project to I don't want to say disappointment, but what they are? And I don't want to come out here and say Davion's been a huge disappointment, but I guess some might view it that way because he was a top 10 pick and that draft was not horrible. So,
I mean, the Kings just got killed by Şengün, no?
I was a big Şengün guy, but
a lot of people were, yeah.
I just want to know where you guys stand with this right now, because first it was Kevin Huerter this year, and look, Kevin Huerter now is playing very well. That's now moved on. Now it's kind of focuses on Davion, and he's a little different because he hasn't really had a niche. He hasn't really had, like, he's a good on-ball defender. We know he's a good on-ball defender. He's very, very good, but he's unplayable late in games because they almost have to hide him on offense. So I just am wondering, at what point is this no longer a project for a guy who's in his third year, 25? Do you think it's time for the Kings too, which they've already started doing that with putting Keon in the lineup, but do you think this maybe is the writing on the wall scenario? I just want to know what your guys' thoughts are.
Like, kind of. I mean, Davion is for sure an NBA player. For sure an NBA player. I have no question. Like, I think he's a backup point guard in this league for a long time because he has his superpower, as Mike likes to say, right, of that on-ball defense. I think that he's great in that aspect. I think this free-flowing offense, like, how many times while De'Aaron was out, or even, well, I guess he didn't play yesterday, but even when Keon moved in that starting lineup, Davion comes in and it's like, gosh, the offense just looks so sluggish right now. Like, they're getting into their sets really slowly. It's taking time. It almost looks like he's kind of just jogging through stuff. And so he might just not fit great in this offense. You know, like, he has his skills. And you would think on a team that is so talented offensively and needs help defensively that a guy that specializes in that would make sense. But they make their money on offense, even if they're trying to improve defensively. So if you're taking too big of a hit, it's almost like, I don't think the defensive improvement he provides outweighs maybe some of the offensive shortcomings that, you know, other players could do better. So I think that he has value in the league somewhere. I think that he could make more sense in a team that runs more pick and roll rather than all this freelance offense. But right now, he hasn't looked good. I also don't think this is the end for what it's worth. Like, he's going to play again over Keon at some point.
Let's say there was a time machine that could take him back to the grit and grind Grizzlies.
Yeah.
He would thrive on that team. Just want to throw it out there.
Yeah, I think like what you guys are getting at is, I think the offense is the thing that just, it's not working. It's not working. We know he's what he provides defensively, and even then, I would argue he's pretty limited defensively. Like, I think my biggest problem with Davion has always been his height. I think that when you are under 6 feet tall, like Davion frankly is, you have to be exceptional. Like, we saw Isaiah Thomas, how great he had to be offensively to make sense in the NBA. And then the second he wasn't exceptional, he was out of the league. And I do think when you're under 6 foot, you talk about his superpower. You have to have that superpower, and you have to be like Superman with that superpower. And I just don't think that defensively that can be your calling card when you're that small, because we saw it. I mean, picture perfect example. Can you play better defense than what Davion played on Klay Thompson for that game winner? I don't think so. He was in his grill.
He just literally is too small.
He's just literally too small.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about that. There's no fixing that. That's not Davion's fault. He did everything you could have done to the letter of the law. It's just he wasn't blessed with height. And I think that's always going to be his downfall. Short Kings forever. Forever. I just think that it became really evident to me in the playoffs last year. Davion's value was through the roof in that playoff series for the first 5 games. Guarding Steph Curry, that's exactly the if you were to draw up what is Davion Mitchell's ideal role, it's in a 7-game playoff series, just hounding a guy like Steph Curry and making his life hell. 2 things. First off, that only lasted 5 games before Mike Brown ultimately said, what you're bringing defensively isn't enough. I'm going to go with Terrence Davis over you. Number 2, if the Kings advance past the Warriors, Davion Mitchell's value immediately drops. If the Kings play the Lakers in the following series, I've been saying this since it happened, Davion Mitchell guarding Dennis Schroeder doesn't hit nearly the same as Davion Mitchell guarding Steph Curry.
Right.
You just don't feel the impact as much, and his importance isn't as important because stopping Dennis Schroeder is not as imperative as stopping Steph Curry. And I think that's just kind of been I think that's a microcosm for Davion's career, frankly, is I just don't think he's ever going to be big enough to warrant playing him heavy minutes. And frankly, his offense in every aspect isn't where it needs to be for a guy who's under 6 feet tall. He doesn't play make, he doesn't shoot, and he really isn't someone that you want to have the ball in his hands for, 15 to 20 seconds in a possession. So I just kind of think if you're the Sacramento Kings, I just think you need to look elsewhere. And if you feel like you really need a defensive guy out there, to me, Keon Ellis brings everything that Davion brings, especially if Davion's not knocking down a shot. Keon's not either. I would much rather get the extra 4 inches. And I think both of those guys pretty much do the same exact thing.
I got a little thrown off there. The Golden State series is a great example because, like you said, he was doing a great job on
thrown off by my computer, the jet engine. I know it's really bad.
Sure,
I'm not sure. My computer was having a situation that I have not experienced before. It was like hot, like really hot to a touch, and like the fan was going crazy. So there might be something going on that's never happened before. Like it honestly was like mad, and I was like closing it. If you're watching this on YouTube, I was like closing it, getting it away from me because it's like warm. So I'm gonna have to look into that. But can I say real quick before we get we go to the playoffs? But and I think you said this too, Brenden, that the Kings have an identity. And does Davion fit with the identity of the group in this core?
Absolutely not.
And when things are going really well, like last night. Oh my goodness, that was the most fun. I mean, that's Sacramento Kings basketball. And that is just what we envision when we think about the Kings firing on all cylinders, just running their opponents out of the gym, knocking down threes, running the pace, and Davion nowhere to be seen. And I feel like that was the case more times than not last year. He did have a big shot in, I think, down the stretch in game 2, which probably his greatest moment as a King. I mean, he had a lot of good moments in that game, but it's all about the identity of the team. And the Kings need more defensive guys, but I don't think they need a lot of just defensive only guys, which is what Davion is.
Yeah, I was thinking about the other day. I was more so thinking about, of course, the Tyrese Sabonis trade, but it made me think just like I kind of forgot that Davion was brought in here for some like role that would, if I had to imagine, was something completely different than what he is in right now.
It didn't even make sense.
It didn't make sense when he drafted him, but thinking of how it would have fit now, it makes a whole lot more sense if Tyrese Halliburton is on this team because Tyrese is doing those playmaking things. And when De'Aaron wasn't playing these past couple games, the reason why I was initially thinking it is, Monty McNair knew that this is how this team would look when De'Aaron's not out there. That's why he drafted Tyrese Halliburton. But I think it's interesting to think about maybe Davion is still the last remnants of an old Monty thinking process where, clearly he had this vision of, I'm going to take this third guard because he almost does the things that he complements Tyrese and De'Aaron so well in something that they both struggle with. It makes sense to play him with those guys, but maybe he never thought, this guy makes sense as the lone standing backup point guard himself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And, I don't want to just to make it clear, I don't think it's necessarily even Davion's fault. Like he has his shortcomings, but there's aspects of he just doesn't fit in this, not unintentional.
Stop with the short slander. I've had about enough out of you guys. All right.
Like it's not his fault that he doesn't necessarily fit in like a free flowing offense, and, there could be a question of maybe he gets to a pick and roll offense and he doesn't look great there either. But I think he could be better in that aspect. And who are the other 6-foot guards that are just defenders? Like, Fred VanVleet's a great defender, but
guy's lethal.
He's a great shooter. I don't know who else we'd be talking about because if you're just trying to make your money on the defensive end, you need to be a little taller to have some versatility.
Yeah, like Tony Allen was probably 6'5",
6'4"-ish. Yeah, like Marcus Smart sort of size.
Marcus Smart, and that's the comp. That's always been the Davion comp is Marcus Smart.
But it can't be.
Can't be.
All right.
It just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. If the Kings are gonna the Kings are not a perfect product by any means, but I feel like in order to get where they want to be, there's going to have to be some painful decisions that are going to have to be made. Yeah. And I think people might be surprised to see a year or 2 years from now, some faces that are beloved right now by this Kings community, they might not be here. And Davion right now is kind of at the top of that list because of what he doesn't bring. There's a lot that he can't bring on the defensive end, which, yeah, the Kings need it, but it's all part of the identity and what makes this team really go. And as we saw, without De'Aaron Fox, this is a completely different team. A 20-plus point per game difference. I mean, small sample size, sure, 5 games, but it's more than that. We've known for a couple of years now that De'Aaron Fox is the head of a snake. And while you can't expect Davion Mitchell to replicate that to a T, it hasn't even been feasible in any way.
And I do think there's going to be a point where like Keon slips up offensively, like he's looked fine at the 1, and because it's not like a traditional point guard work necessarily, right? When he's playing next to Sabonis, especially. But he's going to have nights where he struggles and you're going to go back to Davion. Like, I don't think that this is just, you're never going to see Davion again. Like, it's going to be up and down. Keon still has his flaws he's working through. Quick question for Frankie here. How many blocks on the year do you think Davion Mitchell has?
4.
2, but I swear there's more. Can you think of any other blocks from Davion?
He had some strips down the stretch of the OKC game, I think. Was it OKC or no? Was it Portland?
Who is he blocked this year?
Who is he blocked this year? Do you know who he's blocked?
Well, I don't know. I was just
has he blocked someone I like a lot?
Huh?
Has he blocked someone I like?
I don't know.
Lot?
Like, how do you feel about yourself?
Has he blocked me? Oh my goodness. I don't even know what I did. Like, that's the first like professional athlete I've ever seen. Yeah. As far as other members of King's social media.
Sorry, not to out
blocked. You. No, it's
not to out you.
I mean, I guess you can't really say you made it or not made it, but like you're a part of a media structure. I don't even know.
A good handful. It's
like,
not just you.
How many guys? I mean,
I just can't believe that he really set it up like that.
I can't.
I was surprised it took so long.
I'll wear it after my computer is taking off down the runway. It's fair that I get made fun of because I am blocked. Yeah, by Off Night. Off Night has blocked me.
Yeah, I guess so.
So I'm one of those 2 blocks.
You're one.
I walked right into it. I walked right into that. It's me and King's Muse.
You would, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there might be a couple others. Just messing with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got the.
Don't worry.
I got the offensive, defensive ratings, and net ratings with the different point guards and the other 4 starters. Okay.
Oh, I've looked at this.
Best offensive rating. Let's take a guess between the 3-point guards, meaning De'Aaron Fox, Keegan Murray, or De'Aaron Fox, Davion Mitchell, Keon Ellis. Best offensive rating.
It's the one with De'Aaron Fox.
De'Aaron Fox.
I'm gonna assume.
Yeah, good guess.
Assume it's Keon Ellis.
It is De'Aaron Fox, 126.8 offensive rating. Second,
it's Keon Ellis.
Keon Ellis,
Yeah.
108.5. Third,
yeah, let's talk about that net rating for this one.
Davion Mitchell, 92.0. We'll get to net rating, right? So that's offensive rating, 126 for
92.0, you said?
92.
By the way, that's terrible. That's per 100 possessions.
It's horrible. It's really,
you can't
really
even
bad.
Get to 100 points.
I think the Kings were 118 as a team last year, So, again, 126.8 with Fox, 108.5 with Keon, 92 with Davion. Defensive rating. Best defensive rating. Care to take a guess?
It's Keon's.
It is Keon. You clearly did just look at these numbers, like you said.
98.6.
Second place, Davion, 108.7. Third place, right behind him, De'Aaron's lineup, 109.5. Net ratings.
Yeah, let's do this.
These are the wild ones.
This is insane.
Best net rating, De'Aaron Fox, 17.4 in the 71 minutes he's played. It's also the most minutes, even though De'Aaron has not played in 5 games. 17.4 with De'Aaron as the point guard with the 4 other starters. Second place, Keon Ellis.
Yep. Still
35 total minutes.
Yep.
Plus 9.8 net rating.
Mm-hmm.
Davion, 61 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know this number, Frank? Do you know how bad this number is?
I don't know. I'm afraid to hear it.
Minus 16.
Yeah, I was like, that's what it was when I checked last time.
Again, De'Aaron plus 17.4 with the other 4 other starters, right? Keon, 4 other starters, plus 9.8 net rating. Davion with the 4 other starters, minus 16.7.
So we see the trend here.
Oof.
Like, that's the thing. It's like you can't expect someone to come in and be De'Aaron Fox, but there are teams out there, teams that compete for championships, even in the playoff race, even not in the playoff race, that have serviceable backup options to where the drop off isn't that significant from your starters. The Kings cannot survive that. And as we see already with Keon Ellis, just a simple change in play style which, yes, maybe Davion Mitchell is a better defender than Keon Ellis. I'd say he probably is. I'd say he definitely is. Wouldn't you agree? But that's not really what the Kings need as far as to like, they need to sustain their offense. That's what makes them great.
Yeah.
Until they can find a rhythm on defense, that's what it is. But that drop off, that significance
Wild
is crazy. And you can't have that. You just can't.
And it could get better because like shooters were not hitting shots, honestly, when De'Aaron wasn't out there. And I think that's like,
Sure.
there was just an aspect of some shots did not go down. I think
Right.
those numbers are a little dramatic, but like, you know, it backs the eye test. Those are also their 3 most played 5-man lineups, by the way, because they love rolling with their starters.
Yeah. To me, I mean, yeah, you just put it there. To me, that's one of those where you can't look at just numbers, but to me, that's one where you use the numbers to back up the eye test, and that's been really clear. And to also piggyback off of something you said earlier, like the Kings are trying to be the team, be the identity that they were last year, but just a little bit more defensive minded. Those numbers with Davion, that's a completely different team. Like you said, they were at a 118 offensive rating last year. To be at 92 and then have your defense be like, you're talking about playing a whole, like almost a counter opposite style of play. With the Keon Ellis numbers, you can at least say, okay, it looks to me like the offense doesn't have any major drop off and you still are improving defensively, or you're at least, at the very least, you're the very same. And so there's not much drop off between Keon in that lineup and De'Aaron. And obviously Keon and De'Aaron do completely different things and affect the game in completely different ways. But to me, those numbers say, if you put Keon in there, at the very least, the offense doesn't look different and you still maintain the identity of the team that you are trying to be in the long run.
Yeah, it kind of has looked like Keon's looked good in that offense, and to that point of like the shooting maybe playing an aspect here. Effective field goal percentage in the Davion lineup's 45.5. Obviously Davion's part of this, right? But I think there is an aspect of shots not going down. 53.1 effective field goal percentage in the Keon lineups, and then 60.4, no surprise, best with the De'Aaron lineups. My next question, you go into this road trip, you got a 6-game road trip coming up, right?
2 weeks, man.
2 weeks. LA, San Antonio, Dallas, New Orleans, Minnesota. You go into this LA game on Wednesday. Who's your backup point guard?
It's Keon Ellis. I think it's Keon Ellis until further notice.
It's gotta be, right? Until Keon loses the job.
Until we see Keon just get absolutely burnt, or like you're even though he's a sophomore, you're welcome to the NBA, just kind of schooling. I don't know. We have yet to see that from him. He plays pretty calm, pretty collected. He's a little passive on offense sometimes, even the shot's not fantastic right now. But he is someone who said he takes a lot of pride in his offense. We saw it in Summer League. We just need to make sure that, I mean, the Kings need to make sure, not we, that the way now.
Can I do something about the we thing? Yes. Can I just say, so I was watching PTI yesterday. Michael Wilbon, who's elder statesman in the sports journalism world.
You're a fan. I mean,
we did a PTI special. I completely forgot about that. He was talking about Team USA basketball, said we. And I was like, you know what? That's interesting. Exactly. He said we. He's somebody who says we, and we're talking about Team USA basketball. Why can you say we with Team USA? I guess you could say, oh, you know, we're part of we're part of, it's a nationalist pride kind of thing. Why can't you say that with your hometown team? It's civic pride. It's literally the same exact thought process as saying we for Team USA.
I agree.
But it's on a smaller scale. And just because it's on a smaller scale, that means you can't have as much civic pride in a place that actually like affects my day-to-day life. Like I'm a lot more involved and concerned about what happens in Sacramento than in US as a total. Like it's just ridiculous. No, we'll never understand. I concede my time.
I'm a we guy. I've said we forever. And the way I've always viewed it is, and again, this is different because we are not fans, even though we grew up fans. Chris and I specifically, I guess, grew up Sacramento Kings fans.
Let's go Celtics.
This guy is you know, rocking with what's the mascot called?
Lucky, the leprechaun.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Well, how is this news?
I don't know. His name's Lucky.
Well, okay. Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
like a dog. Like
like a dog.
Like Lucky. Like people. I know like 5 dogs named
like
Lucky
the Charms.
Oh, Lucky Charms.
Yeah,
the cereal.
But same guy.
Have you been a wee guy? I've been a wee guy, and only since we've gotten to the media scene some people don't like it when you say we, and I catch myself a lot, but then I think about, I put so much time in, not just with the Kings, but with the Yankees, with other teams I like and I enjoy, specifically those teams, really. Not
The Bills, right?
I don't want to talk about the Bills right now, but I put too much time into the teams that I follow and I enjoy, and money, whether it be merchandise, tickets, and yes, for my friend. And that's the thing with sports. Sports are really, you need fans. The fans are what generate everything with sports. That they generate literally everything. So I think it's very valid and fair to say we, but some people don't think so. So I agree with you.
Personally, I'm going to stay out of the we conversation. I'm gonna hold off on that one. I will admit. Yeah, not gonna. Yeah.
I know. Well, that says enough.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold off. It was definitely a process to condition myself out of it, and it's still for sure a work in progress.
I think we've all.
But I noticed the same thing with Chris though. Like I was listening. Zach Lowe is probably my favorite podcast, and he was like saying we over and over talking about Team USA, and it catches my ear.
I think that everyone has a learning process and learning curve to go through when you become a member of the media, or you become someone that's on the air, has a show, or your writers. Like
same thing, but yeah.
No, you're on the air for 4 hours every day. That's what I'm saying. It's more magnified. Like we had to relearn how to do things. Like we still are. So like it's not always perfect, and people do things differently. Like Matt George he's getting articles written about him because that guy's passionate. So
shout out Matt, by the way. Can I mention that tomorrow he has a live viewing party?
Chris doesn't know.
True, actually.
You can mention it. It's a friend.
Tomorrow he has a viewing party Wednesday. Yes, for the Lakers Kings game at. Do we know
Sackyard?
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be there. I think Frank is going to try. Chris will be there. Frank is a fake friend, but it's all good.
I have to write about the game. I'll make it work. It's going to rain tomorrow. Oh, it's supposed to rain tomorrow. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Matt is
not for
Matt's that would be awesome. Clip that.
Not to
Shout
ruin Matt's. They have a roof. It's a facility. They have a roof. Matt will be fine. Bring your swimwear.
Frankie, save me. Where do we go next?
Bring a floaty.
Where do we go?
I think. No.
Oh, by the way, we're gonna be there, so people should go to the thing tomorrow. Is what I mean.
6-game road trip. 6-game road trip. Lay out the teams one more time for us, please, Brenden. It's a silly, goofy.
All right.
Real quick, the vibes have been very good at practice and around the team lately, and we're all kind of in a silly, goofy mood today. That's kind of what's going on.
I guess actually before we get to road trip, because this will involve the road trip, in-season tournament. Did you feel like there was anything extra to the in-season tournament? Do you care about the in-season tournament at all?
I'm trying to care. I don't personally feel like there's a lot of steam behind it. I don't think teams are necessarily playing differently. I know the first day of the in-season tournament, there was something like a margin of victory of 6 points between all the games that night. So I don't believe that that's directly correlated to the fact that it's the in-season tournament, but I think in general, and it's been my stance, I don't see what the negative is. Like they were going to play these games anyway. It's just we're adding a label to it, and we're dressing it up and making it fancy. I don't really care. It definitely doesn't upset me, but does it necessarily get me going? Not yet. I think as this thing kind of closes, the group stage kind of closes, and we understand, if the Kings win this game and they lose that game, we'll get more interest and we'll have a better understanding of it. But I don't think we're really going to truly care as a collective until probably they get to Vegas. I think at that point it'll feel like a real event.
And that's where I think I kind of stand too. If the Kings would have lost that first game, it would have decreased my percentage of care to 10%. But the fact they won, and if they were to beat San Antonio Friday, that means they're kind of like are inching closer to that wild card top spot territory. I think it'll be more exciting. I think that for the teams that are in it, they'll be really into it and excited, and the teams that aren't, they're not going to care at all. I think that's kind of where it is. But I've tried to talk myself into it. I just really wish the courts were not so ugly, and that's what we keep talking about. But
it was pretty wild.
If there's a way to just make that not a talking point, and it's not like it's like a sticking point. It's really
even bad. Domas yesterday was like, "Did you guys see New Orleans in season court?"
It's bad.
Yeah,
there's bad. So if you can just take that out of it and just put the trophy at center court, That's enough.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear? Sorry. Did you hear what Jason Ross told me actually after the game on Friday? Do you know what they're calling the? You know how every team has the strip down the middle. You know they have a name for it.
It's a beam.
Runway to Vegas, boy. Every single team that strip down center court, they're calling it the runway to Vegas.
It's a
Money.
beam.
It
Just so
should
we
be a
know,
beam.
it's literally a beam. Just saying. You were tracking the point differential, right? Because that matters in this, and I think
Yes.
it's easy to overlook that. Like Kevin shot that at the end. Did he actually shoot it?
Watching the video of it is hilarious because like they're gonna dribble the ball out. Even Sabonis is kind of just walking for a minute, and he just starts going, "Oh, pointing the basket, shoot it!" And Kevin's just like, "Okay, lets it fly."
And if that would have went in, it would have been his career high. So
Totally.
after Sean Cunningham was like, "Were you going for your career high?" He's like, "No, it's the point differential."
But that also would have given them first place because the Kings right now are tied, sole possession in first place. They're tied with Minnesota because Minnesota, their point differential right now is 7. Kings are at 7.
Yeah.
So tonight, Golden State, Minnesota, no Stephen Curry. Someone's going to be falling behind the Kings because the Golden State's also 1-0. So
Someone is, and OKC knocked down to 0-2. You're pretty much out of it at that
do
point.
they play tonight?
I do not know. A whole lot of teams
They do
play,
play-
so
they play-
probably
They play
the Spurs.
it's
That
Chet-
has to be.
Chet Wemby
That's the
tonight.
only other. The Kings are the only team in their group. What is it? West Group C, I think
Yeah.
it is. That are not playing
So
tonight.
a San Antonio win makes Friday very interesting. for
Yeah,
the Kings.
and that's exactly where we're going. So the road trip, as you asked, Wednesday at LA, one day off before Friday in San Antonio. Again, a day off before you go to Dallas. And second night of a back-to-back after that Sunday in Dallas, you go Monday in New Orleans. One day off to stay in New Orleans. Probably cool for De'Aaron. And before you play New Orleans again on Wednesday. And then one day off, and you're in Minnesota. So one day in between all of these 6 games, except for Dallas into New Orleans, is a back-to-back. But it's a tough upcoming stretch. It's all Western Conference teams, by the way. The Kings have played only one Eastern Conference team.
One.
It's kind of wild.
When do they play an Eastern Conference team again?
Next one again. Gosh, okay, so they come back after the 6, right? Golden State, LA, Denver, Brooklyn. And then you
LA
got
Clippers?
Yes. Golden State, Clippers, Denver, and then Brooklyn.
Okay.
Yeah.
See you soon, Ben Simmons. Well, maybe not. He has a back nerve issue, so he's on my fantasy team too. On my injured reserve. He's probably not going to
Tough one.
Probably been playing for a while, but I believed in him.
So in these 6 games, let's save record for the end. Like, give me 2 things that you're watching for.
I'm watching for Trey Lyles because we were at practice today and we didn't really get an update, but
He's alive.
He's alive. He's alive. And he's doing the same things we saw kind of a week ago. And I know that we keep saying the same quote, which we'll say it again verbatim. Calves are tricky. I think we've all said that on all of our shows, spots, whatever you want to call it, articles. We've all said the phrase calves are tricky.
Because they connect to the Achilles.
They connect to the Achilles. Doctors. But he was getting after it today. We were talking to Mike, and Mike was talking to us rather. You could kind of hear Trey just getting after it. Like he was really winded after, covered in sweat. Same thing we saw last time, doing a workout. I don't believe we got clarity on he's traveling. I would guess he will be, but I was just talking to Deuce about how it's crazy.
They said they were not sure if Trey
sure.
was traveling.
But it seems like the way they're ramping him up, I would imagine he's in play. It's a 2-week road trip. And having him out for another 2 weeks is pretty extreme for a guy that was literally looked like he was pushing it hard today.
Yeah.
But I think if they could get him back in the middle of this road trip or kind of near the back end of it, especially with Alex Len, who I think we all can expect. We haven't gotten the official word on him yet, but he probably will be out for at least a little bit. Bringing Trey Lyles back and having him play small ball 5 would be a very nice addition for this team because I know the McGee minutes aren't always great. They're JaVale McGee minutes. I mean,
no comment.
They're fun. They're fun, and then they're not.
Fun.
They're fun, and then they're not. So having Trey Lyles back will be huge. So I'm watching for that. And then one other thing I'd watch for is Keegan Murray, who I think the past 2 games would have maybe been his best 2 games last year individually. I mean, just kind of looking at, I have the numbers here somewhere, but last night, what do you go for 24 and 8?
Yes, we got 25, 8, and an assist in there as well.
Last 2 games
on 9 of 13.
Yeah, only 2 games. So this is like a very, 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 very small sample size, but 24.5 points, 9.5 rebounds, 56% from the field, 44 from 3. if he can be that guy, that go-to second, third option, which is looking more like a second option right now, that would do them a lot of numbers. So I'm looking at those guys. Can Trey come back? Can Keegan keep going? What about you? And then we'll go to Chris.
Yeah, I'm interested to see that. Well, just on the Alex stuff, it's his right ankle. Somebody rolled over on top of it. It didn't sound great. I don't know exactly what that means. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if it's like a similar timeline to what we just had with De'Aaron, you know, 5 games or so. Yeah, something along those lines, that 2 weeks. So we'll see on that one. I'm interested. I'll go with De'Aaron and specifically his 3-ball. Like, he got up 6 in last night's game, knocked down 2 of them. I feel like he's taken a lot. You know, in those first 3 games that he played, he was averaging 8, knocking down 37.5%. He's shooting those threes, man. So I'm interested to see how he looks because, you know, coach is saying at practice, I think he's an MVP caliber player, that he could get there. It's about being consistent. And it's like, okay, let's see the jump, because I think there's multiple ways that the Kings eventually get themselves a title contender. And obviously I'm getting a little ahead of myself here because it'll be a process, right? But it's either you go get another star that is like Domas caliber, right? And you have a 3-headed snake, or you somehow get a top 10 player. And the only way that's possible is De'Aaron taking a jump, you know, right? Like, I'm not betting on that in Domas. Like, De'Aaron seems like the one that could potentially make that jump. And I feel like we've seen him be really good defensively and pulling a lot of threes. So if those 2 things take a big jump, I think we're talking about a whole different De'Aaron Fox that's like battling for first team all NBA, you know, and puts the Kings in a different conversation in my mind. And then outside of that, like, I do wish Len was playing more. Yeah, let's just go with, I'll leave HB for Chris. Like, what do you got?
If you're watching him, you better keep watching because he hasn't been there. The thing I'm looking for really is making a statement. Like with these games right now, the Kings last year, they started off the season a little slow. I think it was like 3-6, and then went on the 7-game win streak. Right. This is kind of a similar opportunity where they're sitting at 5-4. They've kind of sputtered out the gate. They've definitely found the better side of their record, but you know, it feels like this is a great opportunity to really prove who you are against, you know, it's not bad opponents, but I would say most of these opponents are really beatable. The Lakers are a team they've already faced and taken down. Who knows if LeBron's playing in that game? You got the Spurs. That's about as easy as it's going to get in the Western Conference, regardless of, you know, where they end up finishing. That's still a tough team with Wemby, of course, and that's going to be an interesting matchup. But Dallas is right now the second best team in the Western Conference by standings. But you look at the teams they've played, they really haven't had that big of a test, with the exception of Denver, and they didn't beat Denver. So I think that's a really good opportunity, just that little stretch, and then you have the 2 Pelicans games and the Timberwolves game as well. We're going to know, or at least have a much better idea of who this team really is and where they're at when it comes to the competition level by the end of this road trip. And to me, that's more what I'm looking for. Most what I'm looking for is just who really are these guys, because they've been 2 completely different teams with and without De'Aaron Fox. In their wins and in their losses, they've looked like completely different teams. So just getting a more well-rounded picture of who this team actually is what I'm most looking forward to, for sure.
And they're trending upwards, but you know, it's not always
straight,
linear, obviously, in the NBA.
Come on,
you got a good point, man. Like, there's a lot of Western Conference teams in here of kind of different calibers. Like you mentioned, Dallas playing well, albeit their strength of schedule. Minnesota's playing amazing.
What are the odds that the Kings beat New Orleans twice? I would say almost none, right? I feel like New Orleans is one of those teams that's just always just an.
They killed them last year in one game.
One game, New Orleans killed them, and I think the Kings handled them pretty easily in one of them as well.
Not that it matters, because players being out against the Kings really just magnifies that they might lose even more.
De'Aaron Fox is out and the Kings just become the worst team in the NBA, but everyone else can miss their star and just absolutely obliterate the Kings.
CJ McCollum, I believe, which is scary for CJ McCollum, who he had a collapsed lung for the second time in his second time. No timetable for return was given. That was a week ago. I would imagine he probably won't be available, but
they're without a lot of guys. Alvarado, Trey Murphy.
Yeah.
They're without a lot of guys.
Zion is, what did he say? He's not processing. He's
I did not see.
He's like taking things in.
Oh yeah, about his he's working on buying in.
Working on buying in. Can you imagine if De'Aaron Fox sat down and told us, just trying to figure out how to buy in, working on buying into this?
That's like one of those things that like we almost would all look at the other media members and be like, are we putting this out there, or because this is not going to go well?
Yeah, this is not.
That's
good.
crazy. I didn't see that.
Yeah, he literally is like, he's like really in his thoughts. Like it's on there. It's on the Twitter or X. I'm never calling it X. I'm sorry.
No, and you should
never call
your ex.
Uncle
never
Elon.
call your ex.
Let's shut this down.
6 games. What is the least amount of wins that you'd be like, all right, that's a fine trip?
I feel like where the Kings are they're no longer the up and coming fun story. They need to, and I hate to say need or must, but they need to be 500 on this trip. Like 2-4 is a tough road trip. That's a bad trip.
Yeah.
500 is livable, but if they're a playoff team or trying to stay in it in a tough West, these are the kind of things that'll get you. Like you can't go 2-4 or lose 4 or 5, whether however the games come. But tough games for sure. And a 2-week road trip is brutal. But in my mind, the floor is 3-3.
And then what's your prediction?
I'm gonna go 4-2.
Okay.
Kings are playing some good basketball with De'Aaron Fox. They look really good. They look good before he went down with the injury. They look completely horrible without him. It sounds like he came out of today's practice and had last night's game fine. Mike said he's completely fine. So
he did say, there's always going to be some lingering pain for a couple months. That's how this works.
And De'Aaron said that last night,
okay.
Right?
Yeah,
De'Aaron, and that's the guy who he had an ankle injury before. I think he knows
2019.
He knows how these things work, and for sure. But I think that the athlete that he is and how he takes care of himself, he's going to be fine. But if De'Aaron Fox is available for all 6, I'm going to look at a 4-2 road trip.
I think it should be the same. Maybe it's lame, but I just agree with everything you just said. Yep. I think 3-3. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. Kevin was talking about how the second half of the road trip is what's tough, right? The first half you feel fine, but then the second you're like, gosh, I just want to get home, and it's like you could maybe drag your feet a little bit, and that's where it could maybe get tough, So, I mean, I agree with you. I think it should be at least 3-3. You really look at San Antonio, the 2 New Orleans games, and it's like, okay, you drop one of those, then pick up one of the others, and it should be at least that. And I would guess 4-2. The team is rolling right now. I am kind of interested. Trey Lyles was really good against Rudy Gobert. Could we see Sasha at the 5? I don't know, maybe just random hypothetical.
Yeah, at that point, hopefully Trey's playing.
Right.
By the time they're playing Minnesota.
Last question. Were you gonna give your prediction?
No, I mean, I pretty much literally agree with everything you said. Yeah. Do 2 mics.
That's okay. All right.
Whoa.
No, all right. What are your predictions for last thing? Then we got to go before I keep getting just absolutely destroyed here by getting blocked by people and my computer's gonna explode.
Take off.
I don't know what's going on. What is your prediction for how Sabonis how will he perform against Wemby? Because I think a lot of people have the idea that Sabonis, who's one of the stronger guys in the NBA, is going to completely, just kind of bully him down on low. Do you view it the same way, or do you think that it's going to be, I don't know, like a rude awakening, I guess, for the Kings defense?
I think that offensively he's going to do fine. I just don't know how he's necessarily defending him. I actually think it's pretty similar to Chet Holmgren.
That's what
I think both guys can't guard each other. Is really what it comes down to. And I'd probably bet on the Kings in an offensive shootout.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would probably lean towards Sabonis. It'll be interesting how much or just what both sides of that matchup end up being. Wemby's played a good amount of 4, and sometimes they like to throw Zach Collins out there with him to kind of have an actual big body to throw around there. So it'll be interesting how much Wemby actually lines up on Sabonis, because I agree with Brenden. I definitely think if I had to picture it, it'd probably look a lot like what it looked like with Sabonis against Chet, where his physicality is just too much. But on the other end, I cannot wait to see what the Kings try and throw out on Wemby. I don't know. Is it JaVale? Yeah. Is it Sabonis?
JaVale might be the original Wemby.
Do they almost if Trey is playing at that point, do they try and
pulling up
Trey's a
paint.
bigger,
Yeah.
stronger guy who can also rebound and play down there. Like, I wonder if maybe that's somebody that, Kessler, like, do you just get weird? Exactly.
Keegan?
Like, do you try and throw him off?
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously there hasn't really been anybody like that
And
in
I
the
think
NBA previously.
It's a little bit of everybody, right? Like, because San Antonio's spacing around him isn't great. They have some guys.
You make buckets.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big Vassell guy. We might all have Vassell on
We
our
all
fantasy
Vassell
team.
on fantasy, I think. Yeah, which he's been really good.
He's been killing it. So,
but
yeah.
I'm also Chris loves the Lopez brothers. I'm a Jones guy. I'm a Jones brother guy.
Same.
Tyus and Trey.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would love to have Tyus or Trey Jones. Like,
Me
imagine
too.
having one of those guys as a backup point guard.
The fact that they're starting Sohan over Trey Jones, like, I get it, but like
Running
that's
point.
just so crazy. It's so crazy.
It is crazy.
Last question. Kings are 17th in defensive rating.
Ooh, boy.
17th.
I think they
That's
I think they jumped over this freaking winning streak, like from
That's awesome.
25th to
Will they
17th.
end the season within 2 of that, plus or higher or lower?
How
So
about-
15 to 19? Will they end in there? We'll say 15 to 20.
How about where are they when they come back from the end of the road trip? Like,
Sure.
6 games.
That's better. That's better. Yeah.
They're 17th right now.
17th. Will they stay in the 15 to 20 range?
I feel like they come home at 19th. I think they drop a little bit.
Okay.
They have some tough matchups coming up as far as, you got Luka, Kyrie, Minnesota is going to be tough. Anthony Edwards scares the hell out of me.
Mm-hmm.
You get
Still LeBron and AD.
you still have LeBron and AD, which I think they're both active or both healthy. Well, I don't know if AD's really healthy, but he's
For his standards.
He's gonna play basketball tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I feel like they're gonna drop a little bit, but 2 weeks is a long time, so you never know.
I think they're going to stay around here for most of the season. I'll say after the road trip, I think they'll be within 15 to 20. I think the physicality is real. Like, it really looked like they frustrated OKC and Cleveland. Like, those teams looked agitated with the officials because honestly, the Kings are getting away with calls. There's an aspect of like, you cannot call every single foul, except if I'm Chris Duarte. So like, yeah, it looks like, I think there's actual progress here defensively. That's something sustainable. Domas has been good with his verticalities. Malik took a charge. It got overturned, but he took a charge. Coach joked about it today. Like, I guess because we looked at the numbers and Malik took 1 last year. Kevin took none, right? Coach said that actually the one Malik took last year was because he fell, he tripped, and then got up and just happened to be in the spot where he got ran over. And that's the reason he took a charge last year. So this one, he like rotated well.
Yeah.
Like, it was a good rotation. Maybe he was a little later. They called it a no call. It was super weird. But like, I think we're seeing buy-in. You're seeing Keegan and Kevin rebound. I think that you're seeing De'Aaron be better defensively, Sabonis, and like the Keegan progress that we talked about for most of the beginning of this pod. Like, I think this defensive progress is real.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the points per game just solely of the opponents they have coming up, just to see the kind of offensive firepower that they face on this road trip. And frankly, it's not that impressive with the exception of Dallas. Dallas is averaging the second most points per game of any team besides Indiana in the league at 124.1 points per game. That's exceptional. That's really the big matchup that the Kings are going to have to worry about defensively. But there's a real opportunity to drop that defensive rating even lower. I'm looking at the Lakers. They're at 111 points per game. I'm looking at the Timberwolves at 112. Spurs are at 113. New Orleans is at 109. So those are 5 of 6 opponents that really are, I would say, below average when it comes to offensive production. So I think we've seen them take strides as a defensive unit. And I think as long as they're keeping teams to their averages and not necessarily getting in these foot races like they were last year, I kind of believe that the defense will be around average. I think right now the bigger question is, will the offense return to what it was last year? Because I think the defense is pretty much taking care of itself to this point. Can they be a version of what they were last night? I think is the bigger thing offensively.
Yeah, I mean, you laid it out well. Like, 4 of their 6 games are coming against bottom 6 offensive ratings. Wow. New Orleans 28th, San Antonio 26th. LA 25. That Minnesota one, to your point of like, we'll see what the offense looks like more so than the defense. Minnesota is easily the best defense in the league. Obviously has a lot to do with Rudy Gobert. They have a 102 defensive rating. Second place, 105.8 Orlando. Minnesota has been getting it done on the defensive end.
Scary.
But like, in my mind, the offense is going to look closer to what it did last night than some of those like Houston games and things like that. And obviously De'Aaron's a part of that, but like the fact that, I feel like we can comfortably sit here and be like, actually I think the defense is going to be okay. Is the offense going to be, I think that's huge progress.
I agree. No, I'm looking at the big guys though, like Anthony Edwards. I'm looking at Luka.
Yeah.
Is Keegan going to guard those guys in those one-on-one matchups? Maybe. Done a good job so far, but tomorrow night, Lakers, baby.
Yeah.
Lakers first. See you out there with Matt George at Sack Yard.
Yeah. I have a prediction that Davion's going to have a big game during this trip.
I think it's time we
think it's going to happen.
Shut it down.
I think it's going to happen.
Do you have any thoughts?
I don't think that's going to happen, but yeah, I think the big thing with him is just going to be like Keon's got to take himself off the floor for Davion to get minutes,
probably.
because I don't because Keon ain't making shots either for sure, and that's going to leave the door open for Davion. But I think if Keon just hits a couple shots per game, I don't see how you can realistically take him off at this point.
Yep, and he shot over 40% last year from three.
Taking care of the ball, I think, is going to be what really is the sticking point here. Can he take care of the basketball? And he doesn't need to get a high assist rate or score a lot of points, but play solid on-ball defense.
Right.
Don't turn the ball over, and he's not going to lose his spot. But, yeah, if he really struggles and we see some really tough matchups for him, yeah. Also, I mean, I'm wondering at what point this is for a different podcast, for a different day, but at what point do we have to take into account the days and games played, like the two-way stuff?
I think if it gets to the point where you're worried about it, you convert him.
Because they could
Petrusev
is, I mean, seeing him in the pictures, by the way, in the post-game pictures is hilarious.
Yes.
He just, all right, man.
He was there today.
Looks tall.
He is tall. He does look tall.
That's all we know about him so far.
Looked okay. His shot looked okay. We saw some wide open corner threes. For what it's worth, JaVale's hitting some corner threes too. It does not look
that's
okay, though, I will say.
Deuce was saying that's just kind of how crazy professional athletes are as far as how bad they look like at game speed on the floor, and then you see him just in a gym putting up shots and they just can sink like 8 of 10 from three.
Oh yeah. Sasha made like 15 in a row by the way today.
Sasha's crazy.
You had a great clip that you posted
with JaVale in the background. And then of course he misses it right after though.
It's hilarious.
Sasha is crazy. We didn't talk much about him today, but the release is crazy.
He's played well.
The memes are hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like he's getting comfortable. And on that note, 4-2 road trip. Book it.
4-2 road trip. Let's do it. Last thing I'll add, Stockton Kings starting their season. Showcase Cup, which I don't even honestly understand all these different wordings and stuff. So whatever. Let's just say they're starting their season, even though it's not the regular season. It's the Showcase Cup. The Stockton Kings have started to play basketball games.
They are playing basketball.
They got killed by the Santa Cruz Warriors, who were playing literally all of their two ways and more guys. It was like Pajemski, Trace Jackson Davis, Guy Santos, Lester Quiones, Usman Garuba coming off the bench. And then the Kings, didn't have the same amount of guys. I think Jeremy Lamb had an okay game, but their home opener is coming up here. They're going to have 4 home games during this Kings road stretch. So if anybody's looking for some other games to go to, I guess Stockton is right there. And Colby Jones assigned.
Colby Jones
sounds like he's going to be here for Stockton rather than on the trip in Sacramento,
unless like there's an injury. But
Scal, Jalen Noel,
Jeremy Lamb,
Deontay Burton, Chance Comanche, Jalen Noel.
Yes. What is the name of the really tall kid that has a crazy wingspan that played in the summer league team?
Jake
Stevens.
That's Chris's guy, Jake Stevens.
That's right.
He's on the roster. Yeah, I will probably come down there to watch a game.
Yeah, so we will see. It's gonna do it. Yeah. Anything else?
I've had quite a podcast, an episode today, so I'm gonna just shut up now.
Well, that's going to do it. I appreciate everybody listening to this episode of the Return of the Roar podcast. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, like, and comments are always appreciated. Any sort of feedback. And yeah, that's going to do it. Kings are looking like themselves again, and we're hoping for a 4-2 road trip. Hoping for 3-3, predicting 4-2. So we'll see. Peace.